My wife, Laura, and I had planned a romantic getaway to a tropical paradise, an escape from our daily routine. It was supposed to be a perfect vacation, but everything changed just 2 weeks before our departure. That was when I uncovered Laura's affair with her boss, Larry. It all began when an old school friend of mine, who had recently started working in the mailroom at Laura's office, became responsible for delivering the mail. At first, I didn't think much of it and saw no reason to mention it to Laura. Looking back, I'm glad I kept quiet. One day, out of the blue, he sent me a message asking how I was doing. I found it odd, but I responded, telling him I was fine and returning the question. He replied that he was doing well, but then added something strange. He told me he was there for me if I ever needed anything. His words seemed unusual, so I asked him why he had reached out. That's when he hesitated before revealing what he had heard. Rumors were circulating around the office. People had noticed Laura spending long hours behind closed doors with her boss, sometimes several times a week. At first, it was just whispers, but soon the speculation grew louder. This was more than just work meetings. My friend had assumed Laura and I had already broken up. I was devastated. Though the news shattered me, I thanked him for telling me the truth. He apologized, feeling guilty for being the bearer of bad news, but I reassured him that he had done the right thing. I wanted to confront Laura immediately, but I didn't know how to start the conversation. Instead, I forced myself to stay calm, acting as if everything was normal until I could figure out what to do. Seeking advice, I called my father. He told me to talk to her openly, to express my pain, and let her understand the depth of my hurt. But as much as he tried to keep me level-headed, my emotions spiraled. The more he reasoned with me, the deeper I sank into anger and sorrow. I realized I couldn't just let this go. I needed her to feel what I was feeling. But leaving right away wasn't an option. We had built a life together over the past 4 years, and untangling myself from it would take time. That's when an idea struck me. What if I let her go on the vacation alone? It was perfect. While she enjoyed the paradise meant for both of us, I would stay behind and prepare my escape. I carefully planned everything. When the day of our trip arrived, I insisted on carrying both of our carry-on bags, making sure to pack her essentials, including her money and personal items. To her, I was just being a thoughtful husband. At the airport, as we reached the gate, I told her I needed to make a quick call to my mom, giving her last-minute instructions about taking care of our cats. Laura, completely unsuspecting, boarded the plane without hesitation. I stood there, watching as the plane took off, carrying her toward the paradise we were supposed to share, except now, she was going alone. She didn't realize I wasn't on board until the flight was already in the air. Panicked, she tried to get off, but the flight attendants reassured her that I'd be on the next available flight. Meanwhile, my name echoed over the airport's loudspeakers, calling me to the counter. I approached the staff and calmly explained that I had missed my flight, arranging to catch another one later. I had done it. Laura was on her way to paradise, alone. A rush of adrenaline flooded my veins, an energy I hadn't felt in years. I wasted no time. I went straight home and started packing. Not long after, Laura landed and called me in a frenzy. I picked up, keeping my voice steady, and told her not to worry. I'd be on the next flight in a few hours. I suggested she stay in the hotel room and get some rest until I arrived. A few hours later, she called again, asking when I'd be boarding. Keeping up the act, I told her there was a mechanical issue with the plane, but we'd be taking off soon. By evening, her patience was wearing thin. She was restless, stuck in the hotel, bored, and hungry. I offered to send her some money through Western Union so she could grab a meal. I also encouraged her to take a walk along the beach, enjoy the scenery, and make the most of the time until I got there. As night fell, I continued to string her along, saying I had been moved to another flight and would definitely be arriving overnight. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and she fell asleep, expecting to wake up with me by her side. But when morning came, I was nowhere to be found. The next day, her calls became relentless. Each time, I fed her a different excuse, another delay, another issue keeping me from boarding. I wired her just enough money for food, but nothing more. Meanwhile, I was busy at home, packing up my belongings and preparing to leave for good. With every hour that passed, Laura grew more distressed. She couldn't understand why I still hadn't arrived. She had no clue that I never intended to. By the second day, I had gathered nearly everything I needed. That's when I stopped answering her calls and ignored her messages completely. That was when she truly panicked. Her parents started calling, then her sister. When they couldn't reach me, they even contacted the police. Officers checked the airport and eventually came by the house, looking for me. Still, I refused to respond. I know it must have seemed cruel, but I just couldn't bring myself to face them. Eventually, my parents got involved. When my dad called, I finally picked up. I apologized for disregarding his advice, but explained that Laura needed to feel at least a fraction of the pain I had endured. I assured him she wasn't in danger, just dealing with an unexpected situation, much like I had been. He insisted I contact the police so they would stop searching for me. So I called the number they had left with my father and explained everything briefly. To my surprise, the officer chuckled before regaining his professional tone. He told me that, at the very least, they needed to verify that I was safe and that I had willingly cut off contact. I didn't argue. After all, they had been doing their job. I packed the last of my things, pulled my car out of the garage, and parked it in the driveway. That was when Laura's sister showed up. She was visibly upset, demanding to know what was going on. But the moment her eyes landed on my packed car, her expression shifted. I told her everything. About Laura, about Larry, about what I had discovered. Her face twisted in shock. She admitted she had no idea what had been happening, though she was still furious with me for stranding her sister with barely enough money to get by. Even so, she saw how much the betrayal had affected me. She could see the pain I had been carrying. She said she needed to tell Laura something, but I asked her to hold off for a moment. I wanted to speak to Laura first. I called her, keeping my voice steady. I asked if she was enjoying her vacation. Then, without hesitation, I told her the truth. I knew everything. I knew about her and Larry, and I was done. I told her I was filing for divorce, and that I never wanted to see her again. Then, before she could respond, I ended the call. Immediately, she tried calling me back. I declined every single one. Laura's sister watched me, her eyes welling with tears. She pulled me into a hug and whispered that she was sorry for what I was going through. Then she left, and so did I. I can only imagine the look on Laura's face when she heard those final words. She must have thought she was returning to a fresh start, to a husband waiting for her with open arms. Instead, she came home to an empty house and a life that no longer existed. I know some people might say I took things too far, but I couldn't just let her walk away without consequences. A betrayal like that isn't something you can easily forget. She threw away everything we built together for a fling with her boss. So it was only fair that she got a taste of what true loneliness felt like. But that wasn't the end of it. Remember Larry, her boss? After some digging, I found out he was actually married to the same woman for the past 7 years. Once I got hold of his wife's contact information, I gave her a call and laid everything out for her. She wasted no time in filing for divorce. I wasn't done yet. Next, I contacted Larry's higher-ups and told them the whole sordid story. The scandal was enough to cost him his job. Not long after, Laura's career took a hit as well, and she found herself unemployed too. With all that behind me, I could finally focus on rebuilding my own life. As I moved forward, Laura's world slowly crumbled. One day, I received a call from an old acquaintance who had heard about my situation and wanted to reconnect. We met for coffee, and what started as a casual meetup turned into a much-needed conversation. We both had experienced betrayal, and sharing our stories was unexpectedly therapeutic. Talking to someone who truly understood what I had been through brought a sense of comfort I hadn't felt in a long time. Over time, our friendship deepened. We became each other's support system as we navigated life after divorce. It turned out we had more in common than just our painful pasts. Meanwhile, Laura struggled to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She was forced to move back in with her parents and had difficulty finding another job. Eventually, she had to settle for a low-paying position just to get by. I'm sure this wasn't the future she envisioned when she risked everything for an affair. As for Larry, his downfall wasn't any less severe. His reputation was in ruins, making it nearly impossible for him to land another job in his field. No one wanted to hire the man who had not only lost his own marriage, but destroyed someone else's in the process. In the end, he wound up managing a fast food restaurant, a far cry from the high-powered career he once had. I have no doubt that, with time, they'll both find ways to move forward. But no matter what they do, they can't erase what happened. Their actions will follow them forever. As for me, my life was finally moving in the right direction. That acquaintance I reconnected with, our bond grew stronger, and before we even realized it, something deeper began to blossom between us. Given how we met, neither of us expected it, but it felt natural, like it was meant to be. We were cautious, of course. We had both been hurt before, but somehow it just made sense. She was kind, compassionate, and selfless, the kind of person who truly cared. In a strange twist of fate, we decided to take a vacation together. This time, we chose a completely different destination. We triple-checked our tickets to make sure we were on the same flight, and I even joked about heading to the restroom before takeoff. Pretending to leave, she just laughed and grabbed my hand, making sure I wasn't going anywhere. It was all in good fun, but in that moment, we both understood something important. We didn't want to lose each other. That trip became a turning point. Somewhere between the laughter, the deep conversations, and the quiet moments of understanding, we realized we were in love. Fast forward to today, we're happily married, building a beautiful life together, and grateful for the second chance we've been given. As for Laura and Larry, I have no idea what became of them. And honestly, I couldn't care less. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. The lesson here? Life has a way of throwing unexpected obstacles your way. But no matter how painful things get, you have to find a way to move forward. Heartbreak and betrayal may feel unbearable at first, but with time, support, and maybe a little well-placed karma, happiness is possible again. And sometimes, love finds you in the most unexpected places. Funny how things come full circle, isn't it? Would you have handled things differently? Do you think my new relationship will last? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell.